Okay, it's 6 o'clock. That one's a little bit slow. Welcome to the Addison Township Board meeting. Today is October 15th. We're located at the Addison Township offices. If we could all stand for the pledge, please. Joe, you're a veteran.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please keep standing for a moment.
Thank you, Lord, for this wonderful day. Help this board to guide with wisdom and protect the residents of our township. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, we'll start our board meeting. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes. Eric Sant.
Here.
Linda Garrick. Here. Joe King.
Here.
Jacob Newby.
Here.
Lori Fisher. Here. Bennett present. Supervisor Pearson.
Here. All counted for. Any announcements?
No.
Any petitions?
No.
Oh. Okay, department reports as usual. They're available in my office or with my deputy supervisor. Approval of the agenda.
Yes. May I amend the agenda so number 2B will become 2A and 2A will become 2B, so site plan will be heard first.
So I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, could we have roll call on that, please?
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Joe King.
Aye.
Linda Garrick.
Yes.
Eric Sant.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. We'll go on to the consent agenda.
Yes, we have quite a bit, so I'm going to paraphrase some of these. So September 17th, minutes, bills is paid for September 2018, adoption of Oakland County Hazard Mitigation Plan, Park Ranger appointment, Bill Carroll for a 3-year term, affirm amended L4029, SISMA's M6 Rivers payment from the tri-party account, approve up to $8,000 for seniors at OPC.
Okay, any discussion on that? Motion would be in line.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Can we have roll call on that, please?
Yes, Joe King,
Aye.
Jacob Newby,
Yes.
Lori Fisher,
Yes.
Linda Garrick,
Yes.
Eric Sant,
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to item number 2, which is a request of Verizon for an approval agreement and site plan application for the placement of cellular communications tower on parcel 0505300011, property owner Addison Township, 5020 Hosner Road, zone public institutional T1. And looks like we'll go to the resolution authorizing approval of the final site plan with conditions for Verizon at the location known as Kingsbury Cemetery, 05053000.0115050 Hosner Road. Okay, before we even get started, I'd like to say a few comments about the cell tower. I wanted everybody to know that, first of all, we take this very serious about the cell tower. We've read all of the minutes, and we've also heard all the comments at the public hearings. Tonight's not a public hearing. This is where the board, we're going to discuss this amongst the board here. But I wanted to let you know that, first of all, we live with a tower right here at the township, and it's been here 20 years or more. And we have not seen any buckling of it or any ice off of it. It is next to our playground here, and we certainly wouldn't put our children or any of our employees or anybody who visits the township in danger. We've also been very environmentally concerned in our township. Right now, we are fighting some of the oil wells on the north end of our township, and we take that very seriously because of the H2S gas, and that's a known killer. And so we are trying to protect the township at all levels. So when I hear different people saying that we're not protecting the township or whatever, I just wanted to bring forth that we do take all of these things seriously. Right now, we're also attacking the invasive species in our township. Putting money into, with the road commission, to eradicate the environmental invasive species. This is all environmental stuff that we're doing, so we are very concerned about that in the township. We're also very proactive on many things. As you know, everybody has a cell phone, and everybody relies on it. We do have towers in different areas. They are all on township property. We have a policy that I believe is that if we all have to look at the tower, sometimes everybody in the community should benefit. And this is a community issue. This is not just a one parcel issue or anything like that. It has to do with the whole community being able to have access to emergency services and everything. So that's another side of the story that the township has to look at. We have to be able to get help where help's needed always. So I just wanted to bring these things up sometimes. When people say we have no heart, we do. We look at all the different aspects, and it's like I said, a community project. We do like to provide all kinds of recreation in this township for our kids and everything, and all of our seniors and everything. So we do put the money from the cell tower into all the parks so that everybody gets the benefit, not just one person or anything like that. It's for the whole community, and we look at it as another way of getting our kids and our residents outside. So I just wanted to say, when people attack township on the basis that we're not environmentally correct, or we're not, we're somebody's taking money or something like that, I just want everybody to know that we look at all the factors. And once again, nobody wants a tower in their backyard. I happen to have a tower in my own backyard. But I know how important it is, because it's a Sheriff's Department tower for Oakland County Sheriff's Department, and that's how we get services to everybody who needs them. So I understand that, but I do have to look at it, and I do watch the red beacon all night long in my bedroom window. But the towers that we're talking about right now don't have beacons on them or anything. The tower that the Sheriff's Department has is an awfully big tower. So I just want you to understand that we look at all of the issues here, and we try to pick the best placement that pleases everybody in the community, and we're not going to please everybody. I understand that. So these are the things. So the only thing I wanted you to do is, we respect everyone's opinion on where a tower should be, and just please respect our opinion that we have to make these tough decisions. And I'm not sure we'd make anybody happy wherever a tower goes. No matter where it goes, somebody would not be happy. So these are the things that I just wanted to bring forth. The ZBA approved the variance. The Planning Commission approved the special use. Site plan is recommended to us from the Planning Commission. The variance and the permit were approved. We as the board approved site plan based on meeting the requirements for the site plan. Mr. Davis is our attorney here, and I think he has a few words that he would like to explain about the process so that everybody understands the process.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't think I've been before the board in quite some time, and I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak very slowly and very lengthy so that I can enjoy my time in front of this board. That having been said, a little bit of history. If we go back to December 19th of 2016, the matter of this project was before you as a board. And in terms of minutes, you have about 2.5 pages of minutes from that evening where the concept of this cell tower was first introduced and presented to this board. There was a lot of discussion that evening, and ultimately there was a unanimous vote to move the project forward. Linda, you were adamant that two things would be coming back to the board, and that would be site plan and a final agreement, which would in the form of a lease. And that is what is back before this board this evening, as you had requested, and it was confirmed in December of 2016. Supervisor Pearson, Clerk Bennett, Treasurer Fisher, all the trustees present here tonight, Sen, King, Doobie, and Garrett, you all voted to move this project forward, and the project went forward. And it was a unanimous position at the time in 2016. So in the zoning ordinance, a little bit of backdrop, you have permitted uses in zoning categories, and you have uses that require a special use permit process. This project fell in the latter. It was going to require a special use permit process. And under your zoning scheme, if we just stay on that topic, the special use process is sent down to your planning commission, and your planning commission is required to follow the review criteria for granting a special use, and they can grant it with conditions, and it is subject to a public hearing process. Supervisor Pearson asked that I attend the planning commission hearing, which I do not normally do. He had indicated to me that he wanted to ensure that by the time this issue came back to this board, that the planning commission held a fair and equitable hearing, and that the citizens and folks who wanted to speak on this issue had a fair opportunity to be present and to be heard with proper notices and proper mailings to attend that hearing. And that's exactly what happened. Your planning commission, I think, took the matter very seriously and conducted a hearing. I don't think anyone was prevented from talking, and I think the public was heard, and your appointed planning commissioners took, it was a tough meeting, and your appointed officials, I think, did a good job at managing that process. Also required was a parcel dimensional variance, which went to your ZBA, one of your other appointed bodies. And your ZBA makes final decisions on the variance request and the variances that are needed, just like your planning commission makes the final decision on the use. The special use approval is not before you tonight. You're not voting on that this evening. The variance hearing was again, a lengthy and fair hearing where everybody was heard. And again, Mr. Pearson asked me to attend and to make sure that the public was able to speak and be heard and be in attendance with fair notice. That decision to grant the variance went challenged to the circuit court, and the circuit court heard arguments on that issue, and the issue of the setback fall zone became an issue in front of the court, and the court remanded it back for a second ZBA hearing on that issue alone, where I believe 3 to 4 experts, some independent, some by the parties, some of your hired engineers opined about the tower, the buckling effect of the tower, the fall zone, and the setback of the tower, and the conclusion was that the tower had met the criteria for the setback and for the fall zone, and that went back to court, and ultimately the court affirmed the job that the ZBA did in reaching this variance decision. That matter has been appealed to the Michigan Court of Appeals. It does not impact your role here this evening. And again, the township asked that I attend all of those hearings and confirm and make sure that the public had a fair and ample opportunity to be heard. So as we sit here this evening, the ZBA's role is complete. As we sit here this evening, the variances have been granted and affirmed by the circuit court. subject to review by the Court of Appeals. There's no stay in place that prevents you from moving forward with the project, although we have indicated to the appealing party, Kingsbury School is the only appealing party, that we would notify them when and if there was time to issue building permits, which probably won't be in this calendar year. The Planning Commission is done. In a sense, when you start off in your zoning ordinances with uses that are permitted and uses that require special use approval, when you get a special use approval by the Planning Commission, you've been granted a property right that morphs your use for all purposes as being a permitted use. So that process is done. That is not before you this evening. What is before you this evening is the final say on the site plan. And as most of you know, the site plan comes before you and you balance the site plan against the requirements of the ordinance, and you have to make a decision as to whether or not the site plan meets the terms of the ordinance. The site plan is the site plan, it's not the use, it's just an indication of whether the site plan meets the criteria, and you've had your own engineer reports, and you've had input from Verizon with respect to the site plan. The second issue before you is the lease, which has been presented to you with a cover memo from me, and we will deal with the lease specifically when that is before you on the agenda. Now, I've read all the comments from the citizens as well. You've read all the comments from the citizens as well. Some of you in different roles have been present during some of the comments from the citizens. And administration here in Addison Township researched and identified certain cell tower testing that is designed in the market to further protect human health and welfare. And the testing was discussed with the attorneys and the engineers at Verizon by myself at the direction of administration here at the township. In reaction to many of the concerns that the citizens had raised about the waves, the frequencies, the transmissions, and the potential harm with respect to human health and welfare. So site evaluations for what's known as electromagnetic energy, EME, from potential tower sites measure the human exposure to the RF radiation. And the FCC has established guidelines for this type of testing. And the testing is not mandatory under the law, nor is it mandatory under your site plan requirements, but it fits within the scope of your authority with respect to these types of reviews and approvals. The testing is intended in the marketplace to not only protect the employees of the tower, but to protect those who might be in close proximity or come into contact with the tower. The testing is designed and intended to ensure that there are no harmful emissions. So after further review by administration directed me to go back to Verizon, which I believe I was getting to be a pest a little bit, and say, we would like to have this testing in place, but we would like to have it done as a pre-test. In other words, before anything is erected or constructed, pre-test this location for emission issues. Then we want to have a test when it is erected. And then we want what's known under the industry standards as 4 consecutive years of this testing to ensure that as operating, the EME, the RF waves are acceptable and within the limits of the law, causing no harm or exposure to human health. Now, again, this testing isn't mandatory, but through lengthy discussions with Verizon's lawyer who is here this evening, I do have an agreement in place for this testing, which I think is good for this board and is good for the folks in this audience and others in this community. And based on that, I'm going to distribute this down the line here, and I'm going to ask that if in fact you do move forward with a resolution this evening, in either direction, that it would include the following wording: that Verizon, as part of the building permit process, will by written agreement and prior to the issuance of any building permit, engage an independent third-party contractor to complete an EME pretest for this project, a second EME testing when the tower is erected and activated, and thereafter EME testing each year for 4 consecutive years. All results shall be submitted to the township, and the pretest results shall be submitted to the township prior to any building permit being issued. Once those tests are submitted to the township, it would be my suggestion to this board that they are ripe for public disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act and issued and could be made available to the public. So with that in mind, I have reached an agreement with the council for Verizon to have this testing put in place, which I think, again, is extremely beneficial and meets, in my opinion, the demands and the concerns raised in various letters submitted to this board. So we have 2 issues before you this evening. One is your review and potential action on the site plan, and the other is your review and potential action on the draft lease, which would form the legal land relationship between you and Verizon going forward. Is that a sufficient amount of words? Did I speak long enough, Supervisor?
Well,
I haven't been here a while, I just wanted to make
well,
up.
I have a question then. This testing that you're gonna do, is this gonna be put into the agreement?
There'll be a separate agreement on this with Verizon. There's the terms of the agreement have been laid out in a 1-page document by Verizon, which is attached to my memo. And Mr. Crane and I will reduce that to an agreement. But the wording that I've suggested on the front page of my memo would go in. I'd like that to be into your resolution this evening.
Okay.
By amendment to any resolution that you pass this evening. I want it on the record that we're doing this. And the citizens need to know you're doing this. And the citizens need to potentially get these results.
So this is going to come back as an agreement as well?
Yes. I will, that is the basis of the agreement. It'll be in your resolution.
Because
I'm not sure we need a
this
form.
has the location.
The what?
This has the location of where the test is going to be performed?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll embody this into a document that Verizon executes. So there'll be no questions prior to any issuance of a building permit that the pre-testing result, not only will the testing be done, but you'll have the results.
Okay. If, I'm gonna open it up now to the board. If anybody has any questions of Mr. Davis or of Mr. Crane from Verizon.
I have a question about the EME testing. If it doesn't pass after it's erected, what do we do then?
Up to the board. That would be fine if you'd like.
Good evening. My name is John Crane. I'm a civil engineer and an attorney. I come before you on behalf of Verizon Wireless. With me is Phil Bernanke. Phil is a radio frequency engineer with Verizon Wireless, and he's substituting for Mike Avery, who's at another meeting tonight over in Livonia. So Phil is very well qualified. The question was, what do we do if it fails? We've never had a test fail in radio frequency test station. If we are not within band spec in both power level and frequency, one quick phone call to the FCC and we're in deep trouble. We would, if we ever had that situation, we would immediately shut the site down. Immediately. I would not, we had a license that is worth literally billions of dollars. We would not put that license in jeopardy for broadcasting out of frequency. I was talking to Phil as to what we expect to see at ground level. And what was it, 1/100th of the standard? And that,
Yeah, were you,
Come forward, come forward.
Phil is with Verizon. Identify yourself.
Phil Brennicky, RF Engineering with, in the South End area. Actually, I monitor these EME reports. We do it on a weekly basis. We check all the reports, make sure everything's proper. With most of the sites that require EME, they're much shorter, the rooftops. Those are the ones where people are on the rooftop, walking around, that kind of thing. Those are the ones that really are more geared for the EME, where you have a lot of people around. When you have a site that's up 190 feet high and that's where your radiating point is, there's virtually no EME down at the ground floor for those. It's nearly.
We're confident. You won't be known. I hope I've answered your question.
Usually,
Anybody on the board have any other questions?
So one of the requirements that we had was a collapsible tower or a tower that would buckle and it's failure mode. And I'm curious as to how many instances of that happening for the Verizon had. And have they ever had a tower fail to buckle its design?
We have not had a tower failure in Michigan. AT&T had one that was on fire. They were welding and started a fire, and it buckled just like it was supposed to. That was in Heartland Township. Never touched the ground. Buckled, but never touched the ground. We have not had a failure in the United States with a Verizon wireless tower. That includes hurricane conditions, Hurricane Andrew, which had the highest sustained wind loads. I believe it was in the vicinity of 170 mile an hour sustained, not gusts, sustained wind loads. And the antennas at the top were damaged, they were gone. But the pole itself stood no problems whatsoever. I have always wanted to take one, and I suggested that it'd be a fun video to put a bulldozer on it and pull it, see what happens. Because all the engineers say that's what it's going to do, that's what the design is, that's what happened when the heat released it. We have not had experience that.
The heat from the AT&T fire.
Yes. And it buckled just like it was supposed to, and it was on the specs buckle. Thank you. It was even at the right place. Thank you.
I have one question. After, let's say, the 4 years are up or even normal routine, does Verizon or your firm go out and check the location, check the tower, check the EMEs on a regular basis to?
We do not check monopoles, EMEs. We check the tower, we check structure.
Okay.
We inspect them every 2 years with an engineer and so on and so forth. But we do not check the EMEs from the towers. This is very unusual to be doing it on a monopole.
Okay.
We
So
do
the
check
tower itself is checked by?
structurally.
Okay. 2
In
years?
addition to your building inspectors and so on.
Okay.
We check rooftops, what, every year?
Every year, yeah.
Once a year, we do all our rooftops.
with monopoles, the radiating point is very high, and that's the difference between that and a rooftop. With rooftops, the people are, the people that are servicing the rooftop, there's a chance that they'll be walking in front of the antenna. That's where most of your radiating energy is in front of the antenna. The antennas are directional, so it's kind of like a flashlight. Most of the energy is in front of the antenna, and if you ever see a flashlight, if you go 100 feet below a flashlight, there's no energy below it.
I think there was also concern of maintenance with Mr. Crane answered that as well.
Thank you.
So that's done.
I had another question. What's the typical radiating power of one of these monopoles?
We have several different radios. What we're putting up generally is dual band radios with 40 watts way up there, and it's 40 watts per frequency that we transmit. So there are different frequencies like 700, 850, 800 PCS. Each one of those is a different radiating frequency. So 40 watts per frequency.
What are the levels at the ground level?
It really depends, like for example, like in a rooftop, defining ground level is different. Like
Talk about
In
monopoles.
our
What about
monopole.
monopoles?
Our monopole.
monopoles, I mean, they don't, to be honest with you, beyond like 50 feet, there's really no noticeable measurements that they can measure. What they do is they generally give you a report, kind of like a heat map, and it kind of looks like a flashlight, but not as, once you keep getting away, it's there's nothing to measure for the most part. Once you get, like even 25, 30 feet below the antennas, it gets pretty minuscule.
And what does a cell phone typically emit?
Point two, or,
0.2 of a watt, something
Yeah.
like that?
yep.
So you have a cell phone right up against your head, and you got 40 watts at the top of a pole 190 feet up and
You got it.
hundreds of feet away.
Yeah. The radiating point is way up there, so it's not really, if that was down below, that's, but the rooftops, that's what I.
But is it directionally steered beam or?
It's a directional antenna, so it's kind of like flashlight, so most of the energy radiates directionally out the antenna, not really down.
Is it electronically steered?
No, they're not. They're just regular passive antennas.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
This mine's not so much a question, not a question for you. As some of you may know, I live in the area that this tower is being proposed. And in 2013, my son had an accident in the yard and broke his leg. Our cell phones do not work in this area, and I could not call 911. In 2016, we voted to proceed with this venture going forward, but what became clear was that my neighbors are not happy about this cell phone tower, and they don't want it in the proposed location. If this resolution does move forward tonight, one thing that I guess I would hope is, as of right now, we are suggesting that the funds from the tower go into the park fund. Because the neighborhood does not want the tower, I was hoping that maybe as a board we can at some point look into, can we give the residents in that area maybe something that will have more of an impact on their lives. Most of these homes are 3 and 4 miles back on very rough dirt roads. My son was a student at Kingsbury. I know from talking to the other parents that was a major issue of these parents trying to drive their kids to school on our very horrible dirt roads. I know this past year, Trustee Newby was working on a project over on DeQuinder, putting limestone down on the roads. So we're talking about a good sum of money, and I hope that the board would maybe consider, instead of putting the money into the park fund, we're talking about an area where most people have 10, 20, 30 acres of property. They've got enough to maintain. I don't know that that is going to directly benefit the residents in that area, but maybe putting limestone or improving the roads at least would give them something.
Anyone else have any comments?
I have a comment on the site plan. Are we there yet?
We are,
This is where I am.
that's where we're at.
I don't like the barbed wire on the fence. Can we not have barbed wire?
Do we have the tower that we put at the preserve park? Do we have barbed wire on top of that one? I don't believe we do we?
I honestly don't recall. But if you want barbed wire taken off, we'll do it.
I think they placed it the other way.
That's not an issue. It'll
Why is it there for to begin with?
keep people out of the site, plain and simple. It's a remote area. I know you don't have any crime in Addison Township. You have an excellent sheriff's department, but it's to keep people out. So we'll leave it off. If it becomes a problem, we'll come back and talk to you. Make the fence taller.
No problem if we, is that satisfied? We don't get left off then? If there's an issue, the sheriff will let us know and then we'll contact you.
No barbed wire? Do you want that as number 6 on the resolution, no barbed wire unless deemed necessary?
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Is there a motion to move the authorize the approval of the final site plan with the conditions.
Number 7 condition being the language from Mr. Davis regarding the EME pre-testing prior to a building permit with written reports by an independent third party, and then a second test after it's erected, and then 4 years sequential.
If you guys just reference this letter, I'm going to take this out and put it in the resolution as number 5. And then I'm going to put number 6 as no barbed wire unless deemed necessary and agreed upon by the supervisor.
The barbed wire, well, I'll rely on the sheriff and Verizon on that. Once
Well,
they come back,
they
I'll
would
come
have
back.
to get
I'll
approval.
come back to the board and tell
Okay.
them that we had an incident and how we're gonna fix it.
So then it's just going to be no barbed wire is number 6. And number 5 is going to be the third-party testing, but I'll put it in full.
Why am I not getting the numbers the same as you? I already have 5. So wouldn't that be 6 and 7?
Are you using the one that was in a side package?
Yeah. All right,
I only have 4.
never mind. That's all I had to say.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion then? That's,
I didn't hear that.
I had made a motion. I didn't know if anybody had any other comments.
There'll be discussion after the motion.
yes. So, you're not making the motion you're just asking for the...
I can make the motion to move the resolution for the cell tower as discussed,
And with the amendments made this evening.
as discussed with
Those
the
two.
amendments, yes.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
Second. There, a motion is second. Could we have roll call,
I
please?
thought we didn't discuss.
We can discuss after the motion, okay?
I would just like to say one
Actually, then,
item.
yeah, I just wanted to say one thing before the motion in that case. I come at this from, I think we all come at it from our own backgrounds. I come at it as, a mechanical engineer, and furthermore, I worked in the nuclear field for decades. I was an occupational exposure to ionizing radiation worker. I've served on ships where we had radars that didn't put out 40 watts, they put out 4 megawatts. You didn't want to be a bird flying in front of one of them. I consider the threat from a cell phone in your pocket worse than the threat from a monopole at that distance. I think if you did it's not a cube law expansion because it is a somewhat directional beam, but it's going to be at least linear, and certainly probably more like square. And it's amazing they make these cell towers work at all. This whole technology is amazing for the incredibly small power levels. We need a tower in this area of the township. There's too many people without service, and that's all I gotta say.
I just wanted to say one thing. I like the concept of the funds from the park the funds from the tower going to the park, but at the same time, I hate to not pick up on a suggestion, and maybe you can talk to your guy at the road commission and see if there is something we can do in the future. Just check it out and report at budget time.
The issue with Oakwood Road is actually a county road. It's actually, all the repairs on that part of the road in the township are done by the county.
So we can't put our money
Lake
into it.
George, Oakwood, Leonard
Okay.
Road, and Mack Road are all county Class A roads, so those are done by the county. Hosner Road, actually, Hosner going north is also a county road. The rest of the roads in the township are part of the township obligation as far as third-party money and such.
So those are kind of exempt, is what you're saying? Okay.
And I'll just say a few words. I do want everybody understand that 911 is part of the reason in my mind why we need a tower. The 911, heaven help if we have any disasters or anything up in that area, even for the school's sake. All of our other schools do have 911 capability. And this world has changed, and I want every child who goes to any school in this township to have that 911 capability at any given time. So I want to make sure that in that area, I read there was testimony of somebody who had fallen off a tractor and laid out in the field for a long time and had no 911 capability. I attempted several times to call on a cell phone and did not get help and had to crawl back, I believe, to their home or whatever. So the 911, and I talked to the fire chief, I talked to the sheriff's department, that's of utmost importance in this day and age anyhow. So that's all that I have to say on it.
And I think the testing's a good thing.
I like the testing.
So the testing should be a big
The
help.
testing, and Joel brings up a great point. I don't have the expertise that he has, but I certainly appreciate him sharing that with us. And if Verizon's okay with the testing, that's why I want to hear the results. And I think everybody else would also. So we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any other discussion? If there's no further discussion, could we roll call, please?
Eric Sant,
Yes.
Linda Garrett,
Yes.
Joe Kane,
Aye.
Jacob Newby,
Yes.
Lori Fisher,
No.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Motion passes. Now we'll move on to the next item, which is the lease agreement.
Members of the board, working with the council for Verizon, we developed a land lease agreement that is fairly consistent with industry standards with some benefits to the township. It's a 5-year initial term with extension, which is very common. We have a 1.5% annual increase of rent in the first 5 years, 2% annual increases every year thereafter, which was a concession by Verizon. The initial rent is $17,000 annually, and Verizon will be accepting the property in as-is condition with mutual indemnification provisions. Kind of a unique situation, and I know Mr. Crane can talk on this for a while. We will receive an initial lease execution payment of $10,000, which is a concession by Verizon, which I think will help with some of the projects that you've been contemplating. The other concession was that oftentimes different antennas will co-locate so you don't have a proliferation of towers in your community. Another provider might want to just put not a new tower, just an antenna. Any ground facility that accompanies that, we would get the lease payments from the ground lease. They all require a certain amount of land for their box, whatever goes into that box. So we did negotiate with Verizon to get the rent from that if there is any in the future. We have financial security mechanism, and Verizon has reserved right of first refusal to match a lease buyout. If you remember historically, I brought to you on several occasions, a couple of occasions where the treasurer had helped me figure out the numbers, where people wanted to buy out your leases. I would come to you and explain to you all this enormous amounts of money that you could get for your buyout, and you would always tell me to go home. If in fact you get a third party who wants to do that buyout, Verizon would have an opportunity to match that number first and execute that buyout. But other than that, it's a fairly straightforward lease agreement, unless, Mr. Crane, you have any comments on the lease. I think we've done a good job on that.
You've done a really good, thank you. Kind of thing. My client doesn't think I've done such good job.
You follow along very much.
I have two questions.
Yes.
Number 14. and it goes to the 30,000. The planning commission tied that would be submitted prior to a building permit. Is that submitted yet?
No, it's just that it's proven prior to, that they have to demonstrate that financial.
Prior to the building permit?
Correct.
But that's not in here, doesn't that matter?
They will, be part of the building process, posting the financial security.
Okay, so that will be before the building permit.
Right.
Then the other one, I don't know if it matters, probably not, is number 11, where it talks about, Bruce, you would have to call, $2 million insurance policy. Does that need to be addressed in the motion to approve, or are we okay without knowing?
Well, it's $2 million for injury to or death of one or more persons in any one occurrence, and $2 million to property.
They want us to add them as additionally insured and vice versa.
Right.
I don't know if insurance company's been contacted, so do we need to have that narrowed down before we say okay or
No, I think you're
contingent?
fine. It won't be a problem with your insurance carrier. There's no extra fee to add additional insurance at this time.
I'm not so much worried about the extra fee. I don't know
There
if
is
they're
no
going to, okay.
Is this the same, basically, what we have at the one at the Township Reserve?
Very closely modeled.
The board received a copy of that one last month of the existing.
Yeah. I got a question on that to follow up on the supervisor's comment. What was the lump sum payment that we received on the other tower from Verizon?
None. Not at the beginning. You did get lump sum payments for extensions, but not on an initial lease. I noticed Mr. Crane in my left ear was quick to say none, because he's still not over the fact he's good with 10 on this one. Am I correct?
You're correct.
On the other one, did we not receive, was it $5,000 on the extension?
He got a little more on these ones. May have got 50. Well, the most recent one, I got you even more.
That's on the one that's in this parking lot.
Right.
Correct.
You've never received one on the initial lease.
Does anybody else have any questions on the lease? Well, I'm looking for a motion then to approve and authorize supervisor to sign the lease.
I'll make that motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the lease with Verizon.
I'll second it.
Motion second. Any further discussion? There's no further discussion. Could we have roll call on that, please?
Linda Garrett,
Yes.
Jacob Newby,
Yes.
Eric Sen,
Yes.
Joe King. Roy Fisher. No. Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. That is approved. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is public forum. If anybody would like to speak, you could come up to the podium and if you state your name and your address or where you live or whatever, please tell us. We're here to listen. We're not going to talk, but this is where we listen.
Understood. My name is Bill Carroll. My address is 1960 East Leonard Road in Leonard. What I'm going to say is going to be much shorter than I've been spouting off in the past here. I'm going to go off script here for just a second. It sounds like I've heard a lot about how important it is to have 911 out there. I agree with that, and I think everybody is in agreement with that. I say that because there was a gentleman here before offering his land very close to there for the cell tower to be there. So there's many other options out there. So that being said, several people have already established that there are many concerns regarding this tower. We provided to the board several medical studies showing direct links of cell tower proximity to detrimental health issues and the impact on concentration and ability to learn. Sure, there is research that defies this, but if you look at who funded that research, it's funded by the cell companies. Much of the research says that the studies have been inconclusive. This does not mean they've concluded it's safe. Please don't make the decisions that affect our children based on misleading and inconclusive research. Consider the tobacco companies saying for years, cigarettes don't cause cancer. Consider Monsanto claiming that their products don't cause birth defects. Time has proven both of these claims to be wrong and at the expense of many people's health. Please consider that the decision now will have an unknown impact in the future as frequencies increase and the level intensity is stronger from 5G to 6G to 7G. It's just going to keep going up. California has been blocking the deployment of 5G towers for this reason alone. There's a high possibility that 10 to 20 years from now, when cell tower proximity has been proven detrimental to health, these meeting minutes here will be reviewed and all will see that this township was warned and the residents and parents of the school children pleaded with you to not proceed with allowing the cell tower in this location. As an Addison Township resident, I found this board to be incredibly effective and a benefit to our township, honestly. This board is currently held to the highest respect, which is not the case with all area townships from what we've been seeing in the news these days. Bruce, Pauline, Lori, you have been incredibly supportive as we've dealt with some state-controlled issues. Our neighborhood has been up against what feels like a losing battle that is out of our control and out of the township's authority. So your influence is limited. The township can't make things right for the residents in that battle, but this issue is different. It's something the township can make right. I say this with the utmost respect, honestly. You have this thing wrong. If those of us unconcerned about our health and safety impacts of the tower are wrong, the township loses out on a little bit of money. That will go to our parks. However, if the township is wrong, our children's health and quality will be lost. It's nice that Addison Township wants to generate money to improve parks. That's fantastic. But who will enjoy these parks knowing that it may be at the expense of our children's health? Please weigh the importance of money versus health and the safety of our children. Money isn't everything. The future and safety of our community and children is. Please listen to your community. Your township citizens do not want this tower erected at that site. We want cell tower out there. I get frustrated driving out there that I don't have a cell phone that works. But there's so many other locations that will be just as fine. In all the meetings on this topic over the 1.5 years, not one single person has spoken in support of this location other than Verizon. It is not the only location available to increase service area in that vicinity. Claiming that this is the only option to improve cell signals in this area is not accurate at all. There is still time to get this right. Please stop fighting your own residents. No one single person in this room, and especially on the board, can honestly say without a shadow of a doubt that we know the cell tower won't harm kids or impact their learning. Don't you want to be known as on the news as the township who put the residents and concerns for their children's health and safety first? Not on the news as the one who thought the money was more important. Addison Township needs to realize that they are still embracing outdated thinking. Cities around the world are making changes to remove towers from school zones. We provided examples to you guys last month. Let Addison Township be part of the forward-thinking movement, the ones who consider their impact of future generations, the one that other cities and other townships strive to follow. Let's make Addison Township be a benchmark, not one filled with regret. Please choose to do the right thing for our children. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak?
Amanda Shelton, located at 2775 East Edgewood Road. And I just want to tell you, I've only been here for a year and a half, how disappointed I have been in Addison Township government. I started off here by applying for a zoning permit for a private riding arena on my property. I spent a lot of money citing the location, making sure that it complied with each and every syllable of your ordinance. Height, lot location, setbacks, area, you name it. Came before the board. Board wanted to impose additional restrictions on me so that they could have the same enforcement mechanisms against the purchaser should I sell my property. Yet you're willing to grant yourselves variances ad nauseum on something that your community doesn't want. We all recognize there are going to be cell towers. It's part of where we live these days. I'm going to look at one. So the fact that it's across the street from my house, it's going to be someplace where I can see it regardless. The problem I have is that every body in this government has broken its own ordinance. And I can't imagine that you're making any money on the lease after you pay legal fees. I don't understand how your line item was only $142.50 last month for legal fees. You're probably well into the tens of thousands, if not six figures, fighting this issue alone. For a variance, you're required to comply with section 2810 of your ordinance. And it's very explicit as to what you must show. They made up criteria. They made it up. They didn't follow 2810. Went to the circuit court. The circuit court, on a busy motion day, between people asking for leniency on their probation and being able to travel out of state, there's a very complicated issue about a zoning variance. And they look for the evidence on the record, and they say, oh, they had these three criteria they made up. They had substantiation for two of the three. We'll send it back on a third one. That's not the criteria that your ordinance requires. So the fact that they remanded it back to the BZA on setback was all good and well, but there was no application made for a setback variance. There was no setback variance granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And Mr. Davis, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but last time I checked, the circuit court isn't within its jurisdiction to grant a setback variance. So there has been no setback variance granted to Verizon for the setback of this tower to be within 80 or 90 feet of the sideline of the property. There is no variance granted on that matter. And yet, we have representation that it is. Mr. Davis represented to the court that in fact it would go back to the Board of Zoning Appeals because they still had to apply for a setback variance. I am just shocked and disappointed to sit and listen to the questions that come from this body on things that have nothing to do with the ordinance or legality. I understand that it's a complicated issue, and you want to placate residents. This is a political body. Mr. Pearson, I know, will be up for re-election and likes to be able to say that, he's bringing all this money into the township. I have a neighbor who did a survey of Hosner Road. Mr. Crane indicated that their section that they needed to cover was the Hosner corridor between Jonathan and Oakwood. I don't know how many, more than 5, that I know of, parcels are well in excess of 20 acres along Hosner Road. Not a single property owner with a compliant parcel was contacted by Verizon to site this tower. They came straight to the township because they have an existing relationship with the township, and they cut their deal. Because the township could say, we'll grant you all those variances. You're setting a horrible precedent for this township. The next developer who comes in and wants something, what are you going to tell them? We only do that for ourselves? I am just disappointed beyond words at how this is happening. Disappointed. I think we contacted Verizon and said, hey, why don't we work out a different location? No, we like this one fine. Well, I'm sure you do. It may all be up on board, above board, it may all be fine. But to all of us standing out here looking at it, it doesn't pass the sniff test. You pass a resolution with conditions. What were those conditions? It wasn't even read out loud. We're sitting here, we don't even know what the approval is. I'm just extremely disappointed in my representative government. And I hope when this comes back to you, you look at your ordinance and you say, okay, well, this is special land use facilities under 4.47 4B. And it requires, even after special land use approval, that there are certain standards that have to be met. Now, you've already waived the 20 acres, but you haven't given a variance yet on the setback. It could be a worthless, time-consuming, expensive dog and pony show to go through that process again, but you at least ought to afford the public the right to do it. I don't know what else to say. There will be cell towers. But be honest about the process. Look for a 20-acre parcel that meets your ordinance within that corridor, because we know it hasn't been done. And attempt to live by what you've passed under your police powers. Health, safety, and welfare. You said the health, safety, and welfare was 20 acres, height of the tower setback, and the other conditions you have here. That's the power under which you passed this ordinance. After putting up other towers that were monopole structures, so you knew about the monopole structures, you knew that they were collapsible. All these arguments existed when you passed the ordinance, but you still saw fit to say it had to be 20 acres with at least the height of the tower setback. With full knowledge, this is not new technology, this isn't like, oh wow, but it's going to collapse on itself. That was true at the time, and your ordinance specifically identifies in its definitions under 4.47, monopole as a structure. It just all feels very disingenuous. And as a citizen in this township, I just have to tell you I'm very disappointed.
Thank you.
My name is Philip Maxwell. I live at 5280 Hosner Road in the township. I'm also a counsel for Kingsbury School before the Court of Appeals. I don't know if all of you know it, but we're challenging your actions on constitutional grounds under the Due Process Clause of the U.S. Constitution and the Michigan State Constitution for having a biased forum in the Zoning Board of Appeals. What does that mean? That means when a tribunal or a body is making decisions, if they profit financially from their decision, it's a big no-no under constitutional law. That the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is a creature of this board here, appointed by it, has before it an application for a variance on township property for which it will receive money if the variance is granted, is unconstitutional, fundamentally unconstitutional. Why is that? The cases originate from judges, municipal judges, who would receive a certain amount of money for each conviction. It goes on in more applicable cases to medical regions where a medical board comes in and condemns a piece of property to be included and has a commission or a panel which hears that very dispute come before it, knowing that they'll get the money when it's done. A board of optometrists in Alabama, this is a fundamental U.S. Supreme Court case, would hear disputes by other optometrists in the state who were their competitors. And of course, if they voted against them, it was more money for them. That's what you're doing, is you have a statute here which you passed in 1997. It's been amended in 2013, saying you need 20 acres for this. And you need a setback at least the height of the tower. Those are requirements of the statute. You passed it. You granted yourselves a variance to avoid those requirements. And you're going to get paid by Verizon, DBA Newpar, money for that decision. That's what makes it unconstitutional. This issue will go up. It'll go through the Court of Appeals. I feel that the Court of Appeals' recent denial of motions by the Township and by Verizon
indicates to me that they've keyed in on this constitutional issue. Because in an appeal to the circuit court, that judge has the jurisdiction to make sure that your actions comply with the laws of the state of Michigan and the Constitution. So we've already made new law in the Court of Appeals because all the prior cases involving ZBAs that have come before the Court of Appeals, they've said, no, we don't want to hear those constitutional issues. The ZBA doesn't have jurisdiction to hear constitutional issues, thus the circuit court doesn't either. However, the statute prevails. The case law will take a backseat to the statute, and the Court of Appeals has given us that indication that they want to hear this constitutional issue. Because money going to the decision maker corrupts the process. When he decides one way or the other, who gets the money, if it's him, it corrupts the whole process. I know you're all good-minded people. I know you don't intend to corrupt the process, but this is a fundamental due process issue. And it's going, if the Court of Appeals doesn't answer for us, we're going upstairs to get an answer. It's going to take a long time. I think, however, the Court of Appeals may give us what we want. Ms. Sheldon raised a very important issue. You don't have a variance on the setback. You got a variance on the 20 acres, and I understand you're relying on Rand Bowman's opinion of July 3rd of 2017 that you don't need one. That was totally fallacious. They relied on the misinformed judgment of whoever wrote it for Rand Bowman that the collapsible monopole was not in existence when you passed your cell phone ordinance. Not so. The tower right here, put up in 1997, was approved as a monopole structure. The Nextel representative, a man named Barrett, who represented Nextel through all the proceedings, described it as a monopole structure and that it would fold like a kink, like a bending finger if there was any wind. It was clearly a collapsible monopole. Then, 3 months later, you passed your ordinance requiring 20 acres and a setback the height of the tower. So this nonsense about you don't need a setback variance, utterly false. His opinion didn't even look at the requirements of the zoning ordinance. He went back to the purpose and intent of the statute and keyed it to, is it in an appropriate location? The requirements of the ordinance are what are significant. That's section 4. And that mandates a setback. You haven't gotten a variance for that. I hope you don't, because it's going to make my work in the Court of Appeals a whole lot easier. Because what you have done here is to ram this thing down the throats of the residents in an unconstitutional manner. Sure, everybody wants to think of this as business as usual, but this ain't business as usual. This is a case that is going to make precedents, and it is going to make a very enduring precedent with regard to the payment for cell phone towers in municipalities. Because they can't sit there, you can look at your property and seek a variance. No, nothing preventing a municipality from seeking a variance for its own property. It's when they get paid to do it that's the problem. It corrupts the process. And I think you need to stand back and take a good look at this, because there's lots of property in that area which would be more than delighted to have a cell tower put on it, Kingsbury being one of them. They have a big chunk of land. They would put it right up by the gas line up on a hill, much better site location. To put it in a location which is one of the fundamental historical sites in this township. Kingsbury School, an 1861 farmhouse with, schoolhouse with a graveyard there which the settlers are buried in. Walk through that cemetery sometime and look at the dates on the stones. They're all 1780, 1790 birthdays. These were the pioneers here. How would they think if their bones were resting in the shadow of a 200-foot cell phone tower? Why? Because you guys are gonna make 17 grand a year off there. And the risk that children's lives would be imperiled from a blowdown of this tower is disgusting. That you would put children at risk, in harm's way. That's insane. For what? For lucre, for $17,000 a year and a 1.5% increase per year. That is disgusting. And that's why this is a fundamental constitutional matter that will go up until we stop. And we won't stop. So you've got to stand back and look at this from a different perspective. Start over again. Start over again and go around and talk to these property owners. The man across the street from me, Ken Mathias, has 100 and some odd acres there. He'd love to have a tower on his back porch. Nobody would see it in the area. It would be out of sight. You'd have your 911. Kingsbury would love to have a tower. They'd probably give you a deal, I'll bet. But putting it literally 90 feet, if this thing goes down, and don't tell me these things don't go down. If it goes down, it's going to land on the swing set in the sandbox. And if the wind's real big, it'll blow right through that school. With kids in it all the time. The kids are there. They don't have a choice. They got to go to school all day. Think about this, because it's going to cost you way more than 17 grand a year by the time we're done. Mr. Davis will put all his children through school on this case. Fees on these kinds of cases through the Court of Appeals, through the Supreme Court, are always in excess of $150,000 a year. And we're going to do it. We're going to take it up there. So you're good-minded people. Think of what you are doing. This is a very important case. It's much larger than the location of the cell phone tower. It goes to the very fundamental heart of due process in knowing that when you go before a forum to seek a decision, that the decision maker isn't going to profit as a result of his decision. That's the fundamental question. And I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Candace LaJust.
Pardon?
Candace LaJust.
Okay.
I worked at Kingsbury School for 5 years. And I lived on the property, and
You live on the property? Okay.
Yeah, I used to, and now my children go to the school.
Where do you live now?
Now I live at 400 Shelmar Lane, Ortonville, Michigan.
Thorntonville? Okay.
Yes. And I have children in both campuses and both buildings, and I have one child yet coming next year to the building, so I will have all 3 of my children in the building. I appreciate you taking your time to listen. I would like you to reflect and think, like, how are you going to feel in 10 years? Now, it's a what if, but it's still a possibility. What if the tower falls and injures a child, or multiple children, or an adult, due to the fact that you placed it so close to the wetlands that are creeping in, even closer to where you want to put it? I've been on these grounds for a long time. I lived there. How are you going to feel if ice flies off the tower and hits a child, or children, or adult, and sends them to the hospital? How are you going to feel if 400 students and 30 staff members develop some unknown health problem due to the close proximity to the tower? How are you personally going to feel? Is it worth the risk? It doesn't matter how big the risk is it worth it?
No.
Is what you are doing worth the risk? That is my main question. How far are you all personally willing to go for money? We are talking about children. How far are you willing to go for money? Do you guys know anyone with cancer? Personally? I bet you do. There's a lot of it out there. A lot of people don't know why people are getting it. Your personal values and ethics are on the line right now. Your ethics, your values. Can you look yourself in the mirror and go to bed at night if any of those what ifs I talked about come true? How are you going to feel in 10 years going to bed and looking yourself in the mirror? Why put an entire school's population and the local citizens' lives at risk if you follow your rules? If you just follow the own rules that you created and uphold the laws that you created, then you would be keeping us safe. If you did your job and followed your rules, we would be safe. We wouldn't be here. How do you think the engineers of the Challenger felt? These are really, really smart engineers. Nothing against Verizon, but I'm going to say they probably got paid a little more than Verizon's engineers. How do you think they felt? How do you think the people in charge felt? Imagine if the cell tower, how are the cell tower engineers going to feel? They're going to feel bad if the cell tower crashes, right? They're not going to feel as bad as you, who broke your rules for money, right? The engineers aren't going to feel that bad. You're going to feel worse. But you're not going to feel as bad as me if I have to bury my child, right? Who's going to feel the worst? Think about it. How do you think the people that were promoting smoking felt when they found out it was linked to cancer? I mean, just think about these things. Your decision has a greater impact. You know there are better locations for this tower. You know it, and you know it deep down. You're putting it down low in a swampland next to a school when you can see high heels all around it. It's a cell tower. It's 200 feet tall because it needs to be high. Why are you putting it down low instead of up high? Wouldn't it make sense to put it up high? I mean, this is just like basic 3-year-old logic, right? I do not disagree about putting up a tower. There's cell towers all over the place. I might not like them, but I understand it. I disagree about how you are doing it and where you are locating it. The way you are going about it is wrong. This is not a big city. You know, many citizens in your township own well over 50 acres that are not filled with a school, wetlands, playground, cemetery, and children on it every single day. And the majority of the children in the closest proximity to the cell tower are 5 and 6 years old. You can put the cell tower on higher, drier grounds without children. A 200-foot tower, 90 feet away from my children is just ridiculous. Your rule is to keep it far away from my children. That is your rule. Your rule is to put it on 20 acres. Your rule is to keep it away from the road. And it's your rule to keep it away from those wetlands. Why are you breaking your rules? It's not logical. Even if none of the above situations happen, you will be hurting the school. This is an eyesore. It will hurt the enrollment of the school. The tower does not fit the layout of the land or the philosophy of the school. Our philosophy is no child left inside. We spend a lot of time outside. It is a guarantee that the noise of building and the regular maintenance of this tower will be a disturbance to the education of children. You can't have that going on 90 feet away from the school and expect them to not be distracted, right? There's a good chance that the children will watch birds falling from the sky dead after they fly into the tower, because that's documented to happen. I mean, and we're out there all the time. That is a true regular occurrence. And it disturbs the migration of birds. I know Mrs. Suzanis was at your first meeting talking to you guys about that, if you can remember back then. What kinds of people will be building this tower? Who's going to maintain it? What kind of background checks do they have? Are they sex offenders? Who's going to be that close to my children? 90 feet away from my little 6-year-old girl. Who's going to be there? Did you think about that? Why are you dishonoring Addison Township's first supervisor? Have any of you looked at this book? I brought it to the other meetings, but I don't know if any of you looked at it. In 1861, the very first township supervisor's son deeded this property you guys are trying to destroy to the township. The township's son, if you didn't know that, gave the property to Kingsbury, or deeded it to the township in Kingsbury's name. They built Kingsbury School in his name. His last name was Kingsbury. Do you think this is what he wanted? Do you think he wanted animosity between the school and the township? You are hurting the Kingsbury plan. This Kingsbury plan was put into place in 1975. 1975 is when we began our very first environmental education program. Many parents drive a long ways for this unique school, this one-of-a-kind program. It's very original. Kingsbury Country Day School always has been and always will be a school focused on nature and the environment. A tower of this magnitude will have an irreversible effect on the school. Kingsbury has been an amazing part of your community for so long. What you are proposing to do could have a drastic impact on the enrollment of the school. The school is transitioning and growing from a private school to a public school. A public school you should be so proud to have in your community. You should be beyond proud of what this school is doing. The school has, to my knowledge, worked with you cooperatively in the past. Why is the tornado siren on school property and not on the township property? I see it on our school property. I currently have 2 children enrolled at Kingsbury and soon I'll have 3. We will be at this school for 14 years by the time all 3 of my children will graduate. My children spend 7.5 hours a day for 9.5 months out of the year directly underneath this tower. And if they go to summer camp, if summer camp opens, they'll be spending even more time there. When the school reaches maximum enrollment in the new future, it will have approximately 400 students and many staff members. Please don't consider making them guinea pigs. In the future, if we find close contact to cell towers causes cancer or some other health problem, just think of how many lives this decision has impacted and destroyed. The magnitude of how far it will reach for one person. Do you even know? Are they putting up new 5G there? Do you know? Have you heard about 5G? Do you know about 5G? It's outlawed in some other countries, but it's really close to getting into Michigan. They're voting on it, they're working on it at the higher up levels. If it gets into Michigan, is it going to be on that tower? It hasn't been tested right. It's pretty scary stuff if you research it. I don't know if you guys have bothered to research the stuff that you're voting on. Do you know why I worry about children's exposure to this more than my exposure? They have 100 million times more electromagnetic radiation, my children do, than my grandparents from everyday stuff. And I'm not just talking about cell towers, I'm talking about microwaves and everything. They have 100 million times more exposure. But how much more exposure would they have underneath a cell tower, plus the microwaves, plus the cell phones, and the routers and everything else? It's all cumulative is the problem. It's not just being there for an hour a day, whatever, right? Children's brains are more absorbent to radiation than adults. A child's head is smaller, obviously, so it's easier to get to the center part of the brain. A child's skull is also thinner than an adult's, and guess what protects the brain from radiation? The skull. So you're putting the youngest children of Kingsbury right underneath the cell tower with thinner skulls, smaller heads, because the brain is still developing. It has more active stem cells. It's disturbing it at such a young time of growth will have a significant neurological change later in their lives. Children also have higher water amounts in their brain and body, and the radiation travels faster through water. Do you know what your government regulations are based on? I'm sure that the Verizon guy talked about to not worry. Because it's based on a 220-pound adult male. That's what you guys are basing all your stuff on. Not a 5-year-old little kid. Your zoning board, and not to mention they haven't tested it long enough or know anything. They definitely don't know anything about 5G. Your zoning board did not even drive the few miles out there to look at the location of the property before deciding to break its own safety rules. How many of you have driven out there and walked the lands? Zoning board didn't even bother except for the one man. The only person that voted no is the only person that bothered to make that drive. Most of you aren't looking much, so I'm going to assume most of you haven't driven out to look at the property. Even a drive-by? You can put on your muck boots. I'd suggest muck boots if you're gonna take a walk down to the exact property location where they're gonna be putting that cell tower. Otherwise, your shoes will be ruined. So wet. Do you really think that it looks suitable if you bother to drive out there? I mean, if you bother to drive out there, do you really think deep down that it looks like a suitable area for a cell tower? I used to work there. I used to take kids sliding down the hill. It was one of their favorite things. And then I left, and I worked at Eva Creek Academy, and I came back. And I'm like, why aren't the kids sliding down the hill anymore? They showed me. I'm like, it's wetlands now. I've only been gone like 6, 7 years. But I used to sled in that bottom of that hill, no problem. I took the kids, we went back and forth. You can't even get the bottom of the hill solid wet now, every year. It's completely changed in 6 years. The wetlands are creeping much closer to where that cell tower base is. Take it from experience from people that walk these grounds often. I mean, do you really think it's a good idea to disturb that cemetery and all our nature trails right there? The salesman from Verizon doesn't care about your ethics. He doesn't care about this community and its relationship with our school. He has a product to sell you. He has a job to do. It's his job. You are listening to his commercial pitch when he talks to you. His kids won't be guinea pigs sitting under the cell tower every day. He puts insurance on the tower. Why does he put insurance on the tower? Just in case the tower he is selling kills the citizens in a community that he doesn't care about. You and I don't even have a right to make this decision. This decision is impacting children that are so young they don't even have a say, which is the saddest part. We can take personal risks. I see people riding around with motorcycles without helmets now because they passed a law saying that's okay. I think those people are nuts, but they are taking their own personal risk to not protect their skull if they were to fall off their bike. We are putting people at risk that don't have a voice right now. They don't have a say. You are putting them at risk, and they can't even come forth yet. It's so sad. 5-year-old children, 6-year-old children. This is an unnecessary risk. You know there's better spots. It's an eyesore, it's a disruption to education. I don't break rules. I don't break ordinances and laws. I don't let my children break rules, ordinances, and law. Why is it okay for you guys to break your own rules? What you are doing is unethical. It is wrong to change your own rules for money. We need to keep our children safe, and you need to keep your community safe. You need to help it by enforcing your ordinance as it was written. That's what you're supposed to do, and that's what you need to do.
Thank you.
I'm Ivan Levinsky, live on 5599 North Hadley Road. So, how far can I say, but around, I guess the main point is, no offense, but these two seem like they know way more about your own laws than you do. And I just feel like you guys are in over your head. Like, if I don't know a lot about laws, do know a lot more about RF than any of you, and that's very obvious. Let's see. But, okay, my one point is that we all know, many parents make this point, we all know that this isn't the only location. It's not even the best location. Verizon knows it's not the best location. It's just the location that they're required. So, they don't even want this location. That's how sad this is. They want to make money, and a lower swamp area is going to get worse cell reception. So they would rather have the Kingsbury location. But you won't even give them that. So all safety aside, they're not even getting as good of a product. And not to mention, I'm not repeating everything everybody else already said. You've already heard that. So that's pretty sad. And I guess one point of advice, your neighbor has 100-something acres. Isn't it possible for you guys to buy land from a neighboring area that has 20 acres, buy 20 acres above market rate, and you're going to make it back, and you're not going to have any legal troubles at all? You don't have to let his neighbor rent and then just get a small enough tax, you get all, I just don't understand why things like that, they're just so obvious at a glance. Again, I don't know very little about law, it's just a glance. And obviously it's been pointed out many times, this is an insane conflict of interest. I could never imagine how much of a conflict of interest this is. Where I work, I'm not even allowed to accept a nice lunch from someone. I mean, a nice lunch. So I accept none. Even if they're going to give me McDonald's, I say no because I'm like, well, I mean, what if I order a McRib and that's considered too nice? So I just say no, all of them. And then you're just saying yes to this. And you know it's wrong, you're breaking your own rules. I just cannot believe this is truly happening. And again, other variances you guys are breaking. So I had kind of questions if I'm assuming these meetings, this is being recorded, just what is the initial, so there's going to be initial baseline testing, and that's with no cell phone in the area, so that'll be a good baseline for the EME. Then there'll be a test after the cell tower's up. And my concern, and I don't know a lot about the testing for cell towers in RF, but I mean, they could easily just have all the antennas non-transmitting. So I guess with the testing data, I'd like to know the entire test procedure and that publicly available. So I just want to make sure that's included in the minutes. Okay, and are all, I'm assuming that coalitions can be allowed, and I would like to have it included in the official rules or whatever, that all coalitions follow the same rules. That after they put up their antennas, they have to they have to pay for the pre-test, and the test after they're done. Because I'm afraid that Verizon, they're going to pass everything and be great, and you get like 5 other on there, and not one of those passing any test, and then that's the ones that actually cause the cancer. I mean, things you probably haven't thought of, but even, okay. So, I'm understanding RF. Even Joel King, I can tell that you really don't understand this RF at all. 40 watts per frequency. Does anyone have any idea what that means? Nobody came back and asked Verizon how many frequencies there were. He threw out things like 700, 850, that's megahertz, but even at those aren't a single frequency. That's just a nominal number. Around that frequency, there could be 10, 100, thousands of bands. Every single one of those is 40 watts. And it's not like a microwave oven where those are like 1,000 watts roughly, and you're cooking your food in it. 40 watts, but it's a directional antenna. They did specify that they're not using antenna arrays and they're passive, but they are designing these antennas to basically be like a laser, which is a good thing for the kids, but it's misleading. So basically you're going to have a plane, and in that plane is the danger zone. Which is great when you get out there a mile away, your cell phone still works, but if you get in that area, you're going to get cooked. Like literally get cooked. And I don't think that Verizon and you guys are really understanding that it is far more dangerous than it's being let on. That is a single antenna, and I don't even know how many antennas there are. That's a single frequency. So this 40 watts, after it's been directionalized, they get gained through the antenna. So 40 watts may seem simple. It's like gears on a bicycle. You've got some low gears that makes it easier to accelerate. You've got some high gears, makes it easier to go faster. Think of it kind of like that. So who do you think could go faster? Someone running or someone riding a really nice bike? You're going to get that multiplication factor, the mechanical advantage of the bicycle. So that's what they've got with each antenna, which is great because that saves on energy. Green energy for the earth, better. We're not using energy, but just a lot of misleading information. That not necessarily that they're misleading giving to you, but I just can tell that you really have no understanding of that it is much more powerful than it seems. I will say I have a friend that does cell tower he climbs, and one time a buddy of his he fell asleep up there, and they came back up and he was cooked, and I mean cooked alive. Like, he's been in a microwave oven for hours. So I want you to think about that, let that sink in. I just don't think anyone else really gonna have that kind of information, and they are a lot more dangerous. They are also a lot safer than a lot of people. I don't want false information. I just want true information, okay? don't want to act like a mile away from these cell towers you're at risk and you're just going to boil alive. That's not true. But they are a lot more powerful than you're really getting. Because obviously all that information, you're getting all that information out there, there's a lot of power required. And as you mentioned, the power depreciation, it's 1 over d squared actually. So as distance goes away, falls very fast. So to make up for that, you have to have a lot of power. Because you can't make up for that. They make up for the directionally, and that's where I'm getting the 40 watts. It is then focused into a much more powerful being. So it's no longer 40 watts. I don't know the exact power rating that they're able to design for, but it's not 40 watts coming out of that town. And that's just one, at one frequency, out of one of the companies. Let's say the coalition within a few years of 5 different up there. And they are the only one on that area, so I imagine coalitions will be jumping on that fast, which I know will be much for the townships. I know it's not just 17,000. I'm sure by the end of this, they'll push 80,000 or more dollars. But okay, I think that's all I have. I just, it's just a lot more powerful than you realize. I think everything everybody else is saying is great. I agree with that. I just don't want to say the same things again. I am very disappointed in all levels of the local government. I just think, a lot of the quotes accusing you of taking the money, that was for me. And I wasn't accusing them of taking the money. Basically, was accusing them of why in the heck would they approve this if they weren't taking the money. It didn't make sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me. Why you'd be willing to do this unless you were getting all that money? Like, let's say it's 80 grand a year. If you were getting it, I'd be like, okay, they're getting 80 grand a year. But if you're not, why are you doing this? This makes no sense. 90 feet from where my kid plays? Man.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Ron Renaud. I live at 2673 East Oakwood Road, Oxford, Michigan. I appreciate all the work that this government has done in the past, but they're just clearly wrong on this issue. They just are doing too many things that does not say. I'm sorry? They're doing too many things that aren't correct. Obviously, the first thing I want to list is the variances that you allow yourselves, that you wouldn't allow to anybody in the township. You use the common term self-created issues, which means, obviously, you could say this, Mr. Davis, is that you knew this lot was the wrong size. You knew it wouldn't fit. You knew it wouldn't be fall zone correct. It would be all the wrong things for that ordinance, but you still pushed it forward. So that's one item. Next item. You have approved the plan through the planning commission that denied with 7 specific items the same situation of another applicant in 2009. Of which you stated that it's in conflict with the character, not harmonious, and this property has a historical meaning to the community, and I don't understand why you want to destroy that. It's also that they pointed out that it's not consistent with the zoning, which is another item that is precipitates here. Verizon attorney stated back when he first brought it to the zoning board that he went up and down Hosmer talking and looking for willing sellers or participants. He said he found none. I found that to be a total false statement. I did my own survey in November. I walked up and down, drove up and down the locations and spoke to as many of the parcel owners as I could. Each one of them said they were never contacted in any way, shape, or form, and they would be willing to listen to what that proposal would be. One was very adamant, he wanted it on his property. He was looking forward to having it on his property. He had 25 acres. He is just north, which is exactly what they stated in these meetings, that they wanted it to be, much more north than this parcel is. They said it would be more fitting. It was a specific term that they used. There's lots of alternate locations I brought up before the golf course, and you guys brought up, oh, well, there's an airport nearby. That might not be the case anymore, because the guy's selling the property, and you can remove that restriction. Some other things that you guys must know, there's a lot of low-flying airplanes in the area anyhow. I see it every day. They're always playing around with their planes in the air, very low, flipping them around, all that fun stuff. Yeah, it's great. But one time they're gonna hit this tower, what's gonna go falling into? The children. Beautiful, beautiful. Not to mention the balloons that love to go up every weekend or every nice fall day or spring day that may get tangled up in this tower. Why are you approving this? It's not wanted on that site, and there's other locations. Your statement is we want the money. Well, the money can be given to us by another means. Verizon is not obliged to obviously give it to us through another parcel's ownership of a parcel that they would select. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to ask that parcel, hey, how about we get a little bit of portion of that so that we can all enjoy a little bit of that. I don't see a resident that wouldn't offer up some money of that lease agreement to our, just being good neighbors. The mention of EME increase with additional antennas was not made. They talked about just their antenna. Well, there's going to be not just one antenna on there. The understanding of cellular towers, they need a bank of antennas, directional. You got a bank here, and you got a bank here. Each one of those will have 40 watts. Add them up. And that's just one customer, in other words, Verizon.
One frequency too.
I'm sorry?
And one frequency.
And one frequency. And then you start adding 5G, which is one of the statements that the engineer stated in the very first thing that he wanted to put in there later on is 5G. Because that's what they're going to. So that increases the volume of EME emitted. What you've seen in the participation here in other meetings is just a small percentage, obviously, of what the community has, but that's representative. Not everybody comes to these meetings. I don't usually come to these meetings. I only come when I'm really frustrated with our government not doing what they should be doing, is looking out for their constituents and the respect that they should give their constituents and understanding what they're fighting for. That's when I'll come and stand up, because I'm not a professional speaker. Verizon continually stated, as I just earlier stated, that they've never had a power failure. That may be them, yeah. But there's obvious pictures I've sent to you along with a 4-page letter, which I'm not going to read to you, that states all the failures that are out there that is just barely known. There's others that were probably never even reported and they were there. But there's other ways that they have failed. That just means they've been lucky. That doesn't mean that this one won't fail. That's the one you got to look at. Is it going to be our tower that's going to fail? Is it going to be something that falls off that tower because they didn't put it together correctly going to fail? That's all possibilities we got to look at when we're trying to put something in a place where there's obvious risks involved. The one thing that I want Mr. Davis to confirm or not is that the agreement that I read of the lease stated that we are not allowed to reject a renewal at 5 years. In other words, if we decided to say, hey, Verizon, we don't like what you're doing, we can't reject you. We have to accept it. That's the way I read it. And it continues on. In other words, in perpetuality, they can continually carry on with it without us ever being able to remove it. What I ask of this body is to rescind your approval now. Allow the overwhelming amount of other willing participants of property owners the opportunity to offer up their land for this tower. It's a needed aspect, yes, but there's other locations. I've named many. alternative ways to do this, like swapping land with the Kingsbury. Say, hey, we rent you the school. How about we give you the school, you give us some acreage back where the gas line is so we can put the tower back there. And that way you get your, there's alternate ways here that we could employ. We have to look at those rather than go forth with this. That's what I'm asking you to do, please. Do what you've done before for the community. Do it now. Thank you.
Thank you. One more person?
Hi, so my name is Tiffany Sturr. I was here, I think, 2 other meetings. My life is a bit crazy. Like me being here today, it was nearly impossible. I actually fed my kids McDonald's for the first time in ages, which I never do. I have a class I'm supposed to be in right now that actually allows me to work. If I don't take these classes, I can't work. So for me to be here right now shows a lot. And it's a lot for these guys. I mean, we all care about our kids, our future, our lives, other people. So I will speak up, and I would like to be heard because I feel like we are not being heard because we're here again. It's been what, 2 years almost?
May I interrupt you one minute? Where do you live at?
Oh, I just moved. So I did live in Oakland Township, but now I'm Oxford, Michigan at 2076 Farnlock Drive, Oxford 48371.
Thank you.
So I'm a resident of Oxford now, and it sounds like you guys have all made up your mind, which is really sad. It's so sad to hear, because I trust you guys. I have trust in you guys making an educational decision of what's good and bad. Like, that's your job. Like, get it right. I am really upset. I'm so upset, and I just want to tear my hair out and give you guys a piece, because you're not doing your job. Linda, Jacob left, Pauline, Bruce, Lori, Eric, Joel, Robert. What are you guys thinking? Seriously, think, use your brain. We don't want this. Anybody? Oh, Verizon. They're the only guys.
They don't want it either. They want a different location.
Okay,
This is one person.
so
I actually talked to them.
We had-
Okay.
I don't know how many signatures signed. More than 300? Yes? Signed. We don't want it there. You have other options. We've made a really valid point of where else you could put swapping land, other options to work towards a solution. But you guys don't care because we're here again, which is so sad. Like, really sad. So this tells us that you don't care about your community. You don't care about the safety of our children, parents who are dedicated, teachers who care about our students. You don't care about our future of Addison Township or Oxford. If you cared for our kids' school, parents, you'd partner with Oxford Township to make it, build it somewhere else. You want cell tower? Great, just not at my child's head every day for 8, 9 years. Not okay. We know this because we are here again, and we keep coming back. By not allowing it, you show us to actually care. Just say no. Just say no. Find a new spot. I know you've invested money in this. Why don't you invest money somewhere else where no one's fighting like this? Like, I don't get it. We don't get it. The roads are bad. Someone had stated, I think, Lori, you had said that, oh, let's, since we're getting the money for the cell tower, let's make the roads nicer so we have a better journey. We don't care about the journey. I used to spend 40 minutes on the road. I leave early enough to get my kid there on time to attend Kingsbury, which 8:15 is when our kid's supposed to start. I leave at 7:30 every day to make sure I'm proactive in my child's education, to get them there, to be ready to learn, to be outside, doing math outside, reading outside, gym outside. Our kids spend the day outside, near the playground, where the cell tower is going to be. Linda, the cell tower is going to be right on my kid's head. 8 years, 9 years, 10. My daughter, who's 3, will still go there. My son will be pulled out of school to come and get her early. I was thinking about summer camp at Kingsbury. How many more hours a day? A lot more than just 8 hours, 5 days a week. It's a little more than, the 6, 7 months they spend out of the year. So we love that school for the specific reason our kids spend all of their time almost outside, if they can. And the educators who spend their time teaching our children want them outside to learn. This is not okay. I said that 4, 5, 6, I'm saying it again. It's like the 20th time I've said it. 3 times I've been here. Still not okay. So the roads are bad, we get it, but we spend the time to take them there because the school is a jewel. It really is. If you guys go there, please go there. If you haven't, go there. Like, go to that school. It's not hard. Like, stand where the kids are going to be. Stand against the playground. Sit here and look around. What do you see? Like, you'll see kids everywhere. I have a yearbook. My kid's yearbook shows the kids doing all these amazing things outside. Like, don't send them inside because they're scared to be outside. Like, really? They're going to be inside because they can't go outside. How sad is that? Really, really sad and pathetic. Really pathetic. And I'm really mad. I'm really fucking mad, sir. I'm really mad.
Ma'am?
Pardon me. But I'm mad.
No more language like that.
I don't
This is
think-
on television. We have young children right here. I don't appreciate it.
Sorry. I get it, but you're really...
I don't appreciate it, and I don't think the children do.
You
Enough.
calm down.
Enough.
I get it. I won't say things like that again. But you do see my point. I really hope you see my point. But you guys are looking down. You're looking down at what? Like, I'm trying to make a valid point. Because my kids' future actually matters to me. It matters to them. It matters to all of us. Get it? I hope so. Anyhow, they do all of their learning pretty much outside. They do spelling games outside. No kids left inside. It's literally what we're trying to do with our kids. Like, really? This is truly sad. Like, you guys are sad. Like, really sad. I have your names. I've got other plans for all of you. And it's not good. It really, it's not good. I'm so sorry. Okay, so here's the sad part. I teach my kids, we teach our kids, I hope we teach our kids, better morals than you guys have shown us over the past 2 years, almost 2 years. That's really sad. It's sad that you don't care. It's sad that you can sit here and still be okay with this decision. Because obviously you've made up your mind at the beginning of the meeting that I've sat here, I've listened, I've had people fill me in when I wasn't here. And I do want to be here, like all the time. It's sad that you don't have what it takes to say no. What, you guys don't have the courage? Are you like preschoolers? Like, seriously? I'm working on that for my kids' days, to say no to tough situations and challenges. It's sad that you haven't done your research to find a new solution. We've done really good at giving you new solutions, a lot of solutions, but yet you can't say no. What's up with that? Like, really? Okay, we do not want this here, obviously, so be better, say no, help be the solution. I apologize again for being a little out of line, but these are my kids. The kids I want to have a really nice education. Like, just do your homework. Like, don't be sad. Just don't. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kate McDonald, and I have a daughter at Kingsbury. I live in Lapeer County at 641 North Fairgrounds Road, and I just have a question. And the question is, I had read an article that the corporate communication companies were targeting local municipalities to build their towers on government land. So I'm wondering if you are a victim of this targeting. And I came in late in the game, so I don't know who chose this property. And is it because Verizon wants government property that you're not considering private property? And are you the victim, is the question I leave you with.
Anyone else?
My name's Steve Oakley. I'm 38211 Pine Road, Metamora. I got
Where, I'm sorry,
in Metamora.
Matamora?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, that's my accent. I've got a couple of kids that go to Kingsbury. Just wanted to say a couple of things. I've come in late to this, so the kids have only been at the school almost 2 years now, but they're going to be there for a few years longer. You talked earlier about being on ships and being radar and things like that. Totally different frequency, as you're well aware, and a lot bigger power. I've come from the UK been here for the last 4 years. In the UK, there's been precedent set with the UK government not accepting cell towers to be put anywhere near than 500 yards of any school, any hospital, or any convalescence home. That's like for elderly people. And that's because they've had reports and they've done lots of surveys and they've accepted that there is a risk. It's not a quantifiable risk at the moment because it's not about instant response to any ill feelings from radiation. What it is long-term exposure. If we looked back 50 years, nobody said anything about asbestos, did they? But long-term exposure to asbestos has caused huge amounts of pain for a lot of people worldwide. The same thing could be said in the next 10 or 15 years about radiation on cell towers. The UK government have taken that to heart and they've taken a look at all of these things and they've put precedents that they do not allow cell towers near schools or those type of buildings. And it's a lot to do with the older frequencies rather than the newer frequencies, because the newer frequencies with 4G and 5G require a lot more power to go a shorter distance. I very much doubt whether a 5G cell antenna is going to be put on this particular tower because, for one, there's not going to be any need for that for individuals. It's more than likely going to be old GPRS and CDMA frequencies, which are the longer wave frequencies, but they are the frequencies that create longer term damage for extended exposure. It's not the shorter term frequencies. In the built up areas like downtown Detroit or the massive cities around this world, the 4 and 5G cell towers, not so much cell towers, but antennas that are stuck on the side of buildings, because we've got a much shorter range, you need a lot more of them to make their coverage. You will not get a 5G coverage in this area. There's no need for it. It's the GPRS and it's the CDMA frequencies that cause the damage, most of, but they're the ones that are going to be on top of that cell tower. Now, Verizon are going to put their 5, 6, maybe even 9 antennas on there to provide them the coverage that they need, and also the amount of power they need, and with the multiple frequencies that they need to be able to do this. Those distances are going to be in kilometres. It'll be 5 kilometres for GPRS, it'll be 1.5 kilometres for CDMA. They'll put their antennas on there. If they co-locate with other providers, they'll be putting their cell towers, their antennas on there. If they want to put repeater stations on that cell tower, they will require to put microwave transmitters on that cell tower. Now, understood, a 200-foot cell tower, the beam is not pointing straight down. So literally, if you stood underneath the cell tower, that's the safest place to be. If you stand the height of that cell tower away from it, that's not the safest place to be. The Verizon engineer indicated that the beam is like a flashlight, exactly like a flashlight. Although the top of the cone is cut off, because there's no point firing waves into the air, because who's going to pick those up unless you're in that balloon that's going to crash into it later on. And there's no point pointing it directly straight down. But what it does is it creates a directional cone that's truncated at the bottom and truncated at the top. And it goes out in that fashion there. If you are 500 metres, 500 yards from that cell tower, and you were exposed for an extended period of time, over many years, you're going to get some ill effects. There's no two ways about it. If you took upon yourselves, said, would I like my child to spend 9 years, 5 days a week, for 9 hours in front of that cell tower at that distance, and you can safely say that you would be accepting of that with your children, then fine. That's your decision. We don't have that say. We don't have that say about our children. You do. If there is another location that this cell tower can be put in that is less dangerous, reduces the risk, because any risk is not worth the risk, you've got to accept that. If you are accepting a risk of ill health to anybody, it's not an acceptable risk in anybody's book. But if there is another location that you could put this cell tower that reduces or eliminates that risk, you must take a look at it. You must take a look at it. And if it's just a case of getting some money in the coffers, you've got to take a look at your moral compass as well. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Poyer. I'm head of school at Kingsbury Country Day School, and I live at 4931 Hosner. Myself, my wife, and my 3 children will be the closest Addison Township residents to the cell tower. And I also disagree with the decision to move it forward. But I'm actually here to speak about a different matter. On Friday, October 12th at 10:50 a.m., an object was discovered in our school that caused us to go into a lockdown. So if you pay attention to the news or have children, during lockdown, the kids are huddled kind of in the corner of the classroom while school personnel work with kind of the police and whatever other first responders are available to come up with a plan of how to move forward. So at 10:50, the students went into lockdown. At 10:55, I placed a phone call to the non-emergency line, and no one answered. So at that point, I called 911. Between the 911 call and the officer arriving, it was roughly 10 minutes, so not a great response time considering that the substation is very near the school. After that, the officer came inside, he kind of assessed the scene, asked basic information, exactly what you would expect. Then he went back out to his car for roughly 20 minutes. When he came back in, he said that he couldn't get a hold of the supervisor or the school resource officer. At that point, the students had been in lockdown for 30 minutes. He went back out to his car again for another 15 or so minutes, so now we're headed up to 45 minutes, and at that point returned inside with the school resource officer. During our conversation, they did not provide us with any guidance or support in figuring out our emergency situation, and basically told us as a school we had to make our own decisions. At that time, I kind of came up with my own plan because I said to them, I called 911 because I needed help. But at that time, they, did not offer any advice or guidance. So I grabbed the emergency packet off the wall, looked at our next steps. What do we do? I mean, this says call 911, but beyond that, it doesn't say, figure out what to do when 911 doesn't work. So at that time, we decided to evacuate the students to the lower campus, which is on the northeast corner where we're talking about with the cell phone tower, and do kind of a emergency pickup from that location, so that students weren't around. In the meantime, the law enforcement were supportive in getting the K-9 unit out to do a sweep of the school to make sure that there was no longer a threat, and the dogs didn't find anything, so that was good news. But in the overall process, I have a couple of questions. I wanted to know if there's some sort of agreement between the township and the sheriff offices and the services that they provide, and what that looks like. Who might we contact when we are dissatisfied with the service or response time? And does the township have any emergency action plans in place to support schools or other businesses? I would like follow-up, so my email is dpoirier, dpoirier, at kingsburyschool.org, and I can be reached at 248-628-2571. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sue Poche, and I live at 265 Cantley, Leonard, Michigan, at 4367. And I didn't even know about the cell tower. I've been in and out of the hospital for 2 years. And I do know this, that Mr. Pearson, I know that you as a single father, I have watched you raise a very special child. So I do think you're listening, and I hope you do hear it, because I wouldn't want a cell tower near my kids. But I am here for a different reason. And I have a couple concerns, and I'd like to bring them up. And one of my concerns is I'm understanding that you guys are looking at a splash park next door. And my concern is, not that I don't love children, I've had 32 of them that I've raised, so I do love them. A splash park is for 4 or 5-year-olds and under. And I do know this because I've had 32 kids. So I've taken them to splash parks and they're like, no way. And I have, of course, a personal interest because I would like to keep that private property for building houses across the street rather than putting a commercial business next to my home. I'd rather see houses that you could get revenue out of. It would be a wonderful place for our Addison library that would only benefit everybody here, everybody. If I have to get signatures or do whatever, I'd love you to tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. But I really think that, first of all, I love this town. And this is a great town to live. And I understand that we have backup from Oakland and Rochester and everything, because I've been here long enough to see it, and believe me, the ambulance is at my house a lot with having special needs children. And I have dealt with social workers all my life, and I've dealt with kids that have been in trouble and people that have been in trouble in drugs, because 32 kids came from the system, and my kids did not come from foster care. My kids came off the street. My husband and I did not get paid. They fell through the cracks of foster care. So I know, and I'm concerned that we have brought our police department, our Oakland County Sheriff, who are the most fabulous Oakland County Sheriffs, down to 1 at night. You know what? Everybody needs backup. I know that Rochester would back us up. I know that Oakland County would back us up, but Oakland Township. But you know what? We need to stay as dynamite as we are, because we are the next Rochester. We are. And I'd really like you to take into consideration keeping all our municipal buildings together. What a blessing that library is, and what a blessing the people do. I hope you do take into consideration these, because this is our future. These are our next presidents of the United States. And this township is awesome. And I do want to thank you for that, but my email is suepoche@gmail.com. If somebody could take me and inform me of anything I could do to try to progress this. You know, like I said, I love having neighbors next to me. That doesn't bother me, but a commercial building, when it could be, it's so dangerous here for the kids even to walk across the street. My God, it's 6 in the morning, get on a bus and walking. But if you could, if you let them develop that for housing or sell it out that way, they could give you money for the property back here. A splash park would be great in Addison Township, at the park. We have splash park at Squire Road. I've taken all my kids there. It's not that much money. There's not that much revenue. There's only so many 5-year-olds in Addison Township. And I want to thank you for listening to me, and good luck.
Thank you. Okay, if we're done with the public forum, then we'll move on then. Any Addison Township board reports? Eric, you're on board. Any reports?
No
Nothing?
reports.
No.
Okay, nothing. Any legal reports? We do have Mr. Davis here. This is your spotlight, because I usually say we don't have him here.
I'm
so.
good. I'm good.
Very good. Any communications?
Yes, we received 15, and they were mainly for the site plan for Verizon. The board received a copy, and they are available at the Township Hall if anyone would like those. Do you want me to read the names of who wrote?
You can if you wish. Go ahead.
Ron Renaud, and excuse me if I don't say the name right, Ron Renaud, Julie Wesley, Jennifer Balamenti, Lori Posey, Candace Leguest, Kathy McDonald, Christopher Wesley, Jason Lewandowski, Anastasia Pelish, Natalie Schmaltz, Brandy Swenson, Ivan Lubinsky, Amanda Shelton, Candace Leguest, and Christopher Wesley.
Okay. All right, come on to the supervisor's report. I just want to let everybody know that, as you know, we're looking at proposed to put a big gas fireplace on top of the sledding hill here. I have received communication with Mr. Spurlock, and he does have time to get it in before this winter. He's working on donations right now. It's quite a big fireplace, it's gas, and it has seating all the way around it like you would see at Aspen or anything like that, and it overlooks the sledding hill. So he's working on that. I'd like to come back with the figures of what we're going to buy for the material. I think he's donating an awful lot to us. So I'll come back, I hope, in November, and if I can get it approved, I would like him to be able to maybe go through and get that put in for this winter when the snow hits. I also would like to let you know that on the midnight shift, we do have 2 officers. We put them back on, that officer back on a, when was that? Sorry, April. In April, we put that officer back on. We now have come out of the recession, and we were able to maneuver that, and it works out quite well now.
Thank you.
Actually, it was April that we discussed it. We had to wait for the next meeting. By the time it went full-time, it was the June 8th or 9th.
Yes, and we do understand that we are preparing that in the future we are going to have to add more deputies. We do understand that, and we just have to wait. As you know, we're growing quite fast now, so eventually we will have to have more deputies. I did attend the state police meeting on speed limits, and just about every township supervisor, mayor, village president was there in Oakland County that has gravel roads. Gravel roads is a very difficult situation. And as you know, the legislature changed the formula for reducing the speed limits, but the state police had a compelling argument that if you put a speed limit on a gravel road, then people will do that speed, and they'll do even more than that speed. Their studies have shown that if you don't put a speed limit on a road, people will drive under what the speed limit would have been to put on the road. So I took that into consideration, so that all the other township supervisors and the state police have come to Oakland County and have done surveys. You have to have 100 cars through an area on off-peak times for them to even do a survey. I don't think we have that in any of our roads here. So I will keep you in tuned on what else I find out. The supervisors are all talking about it, but it's $1,800 a mile in signs that the township would have to pay, and the most that you could put a speed limit down to is 45 miles an hour. And then everybody said that they'll do, the state police said that people will do over that speed limit. Right now, they're actually doing under 45 when they do the surveys. So speed limits are not, the signs are not always a good thing. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is I'd like just this board to think about this. If we would be interested in buying a piece of property on Lakeville Lake for a beach. I have said this for a long time, that 9% of our people, I believe, live on Lakeville Lake. They pay 10% of the taxes. 91% of the people do not live on Lakeville Lake, and we have no access to the lake. The lake has come forth many times and asked, why doesn't the township help on the lake? The township doesn't own 1 inch of property on the lake. The DNR does. The DNR has a boat launch. The DNR does not contribute at all to Lakeville Lake. I'm interested in buying a piece of property. There is a piece of property that I've been looking for a long time, and it has come up for sale. I'd like everybody to think about it. It's approximately 2 acres of all water frontage. It has a natural beach, and I would like to hear from everybody, just a consensus, whether or not you would like me to go forward with Mr. Davis to at least make some contacts and come back with some information.
Acres on the water would probably be suitable for a cell tower.
I don't know how I can do that. Can I just ask for an informal consensus? If anybody would be interested in that? No? Can't do that. Anyways, that's the supervisor's report, so maybe next month it'll be on the
Just plant
agenda.
the seed and move on.
And move on. Okay. Other than that, I would like to thank everybody for coming. We do listen. These are tough decisions to make. Like I said, we have to think about everybody. We have to take all the information together when we make our decisions. So our next meeting is going to be November 19th, and I'm looking for someone to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.